Hi, ladies. One of my favorite Bible stories is the woman who had the issue of blood for 12 years. And while Yeshua was walking through the crowd to go heal, I think, Jairus' daughter, she saw him and said, I know that if I just touch the edges of his robe, I can be healed. Now, the edges of his robe, if you look in the Strongs, it says tzitzits. And the tzitzits were worn to remind people, to convict them, to keep the 10 Commandments. So she knew that if she just touched his tassels, his tzitzits, if she just grabbed hold of those 10 Commandments, that she would be healed. And so she does. She reaches through the crowd and she touches his tzitzits. And immediately the issue of blood was stopped. And he turns around and he says, who touched me? And she was scared. She didn't want to say. So she was quiet for a minute, and then she very humbly, she says, it was me. I did it. And he kneels down to her. She was on the ground. She dropped to the ground, right? To touch his tzitzits, and then she stayed there. And he says, so he kneels down with her and he says, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Your faith, that if you just grab onto those 10 Commandments, that's going to heal you, has made you whole. That actually did heal her. And it's the same thing today. If you just have faith that if you grab hold of those 10 Commandments, that he'll heal you, that's what's going to heal you, then it will. And then he tells her, he says, go and sin no more. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is sin? If grabbing hold of the 10 Commandments is going to heal you, then it has to be something to do with that, right? So in 1 John, I think it's 4:3 or 3:4. 1 John 3:4, I think. It says, sin is transgression of the law. Well, what law? Because we know that there was something that was nailed to the cross. So now you have to go search it out. You have to go look what was nailed to the cross. But there still has to be a law in effect. Because if I break this law and I sin, then I transgress, right? The wages of sin is death. I don't want to die. So what do I do? The 10 Commandments is God's law. Okay? So if you go back to Deuteronomy and you read through it, you're going to see that God gave his law, his perfect law. David calls it his perfect law. It's a lamp to his feet. It guides him through life. The perfect law of God is the 10 Commandments. Okay? They transgressed the 10 Commandments. They built a golden calf. They had sacrificial law added on top. And then that's what was nailed to the cross when Yeshua died. He said, it is finished, quoting Deuteronomy 31, I think it's verse 24. It is finished. Moses says, put this book of the law in the side of the Ark of the Covenant as a witness against us until it is finished. The book of the law that Moses wrote on the side of the Ark of the Covenant was finished when Yeshua gave up the ghost. And what is left is the 10 Commandments that are inside the ark, not on the side, but inside the Ark of the Covenant. So that's what's left. So you grab hold of those 10 Commandments. You touch Yeshua's tassels, and you will be healed. And at the same time, Master, how can I find eternal life? And Yeshua says, first he gives glory to Jehovah. He says, why do you call me good? There's none good but one. That's the Father. Okay? So he gives glory to Jehovah. All goodness comes from Jehovah because his spirit of grace is conviction. It's your conscience. So every time you make the correct decision, you make a good decision, it's because your conscience pricked you to do that good thing. You wouldn't have done that. You would have served your flesh without God's grace. So every good thing that you do comes from God. We don't get credit for any of it because we would just serve our flesh all the time with every decision if we didn't have the spirit of grace convicting us to do anything good. So why do you call me good? There's none good but one, that's Jehovah. But if you choose to enter into life, if you choose to find eternal life, keep the commandments. And then he rattles off a few of the commandments. It's like the ABCs or the 1, 2, 3s of the 10 commandments, right? If I say, do you know your ABCs to any child, they're going to sing me the whole alphabet. They're not just going to go, yeah, ABC. Silly grown-up. No, they're going to rattle off all 26 letters of the alphabet. It's the same thing with the 10 commandments. And he reiterates it with honor your father and your mother because that one literally means to teach your children the 10 commandments. Why would I teach my children the 10 commandments and then not expect them to keep them? Right? Obviously, you're going to teach them so that they can live by them and do them. I went on a tangent, and I'm not sure what my point was supposed to be. But that's okay, because praise Yah, he just says what he wants to say. Anyway, so yeah, just grab hold of Yeshua's tassels. You hold on tight to those 10 commandments. He teaches you to stop sinning through his spirit of grace, and we can go and sin no more. And then we turn around and love our neighbors as ourselves by teaching others to keep the 10 commandments and to obey God's grace. That's the gospel in a nutshell, in like a half a dozen verses in the Bible. That's the gospel.